When I was going through my graduate program, I decided to work full time. It's a different career path than what I was seeing happen around me all the way back into my undergraduate studies, because a lot of people were volunteering with the crisis center or with this nonprofit. And I was doing things that were completely unrelated in terms of, if you saw it on a resume, you'd think, okay, how does this all add up? So I was actually running a small business in construction. For all intents and purposes, if it was a bigger company, it might be like a CFO kind of position. And so by the time I finished school and was looking at what opportunities are there as far as work goes, I just thought, wow, I don't have the related counseling experience that these places are looking for.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Meta Transitions. Today we have with us Ashley Greensmith. Ashley is a colleague and a friend. We went to school together, and Ashley also does couples counseling. Ashley is a registered clinical counselor. She owns her own private practice and also works as an associate at Parallel Wellness. Welcome, Ashley, to our channel.
Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, definitely. All right, let's get into it, Ashley. What is your story?
So my story can kind of be told two ways. The way I presented it when I was talking on a panel, careers in mental health. My personal story can be maybe a story of empowerment in terms of how I got to working in private practice. Because when I was going through my graduate program, I really took the long route, kind of motivated for my own personal reasons, which affected the timing of how long I took to complete the program. So I wanted to come out of the program, out of a master's degree program with minimal debt. So I decided to work full time through the entire process as long as I could, which meant that I left my portion for the end. So it's a different career path than what I was seeing happen around me all the way back into my undergraduate studies, because a lot of people were volunteering with the crisis center or with this nonprofit or that organization. And then by the time I was doing my master's program, I could see that people were working with the health authorities or with some other kinds of organizations in the realm of mental health, and had kind of gotten to as far as they could, and then needed their master's degree to, go further down their career path. And I was doing things that were completely unrelated in terms of, if you saw it on a resume, you'd think, okay, how does this all add up? So, so when I was doing the master's program at Adler, I was actually running a small business in a trade in construction, running all of the management, doing absolutely everything. For all intents and purposes, if it was a bigger company, it might be like a CFO kind of position, but it was a really kind of mom and pop shop. Yeah. So that was helping. That was my kind of my bread and butter, for lack of better words, to put me through school. And so
it sounds great. Like, it sounds like, you were really doing it. That idea of wanting to get through school without debt is amazing, right? And we both know that graduate schools can be expensive. So it sounds like you had a plan at least. Yes.
I did. Yeah. I knew I didn't want to be paying off my debt forever. And so I actually just completed paying off my line of credit at the beginning of this month. So that was a huge achievement. Like, I'm through the other side of it now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a huge step. Exciting. It's a huge step. Yes.
Yeah, it really is. And so by the time I finished school and was looking at what opportunities are there as far as work goes, looking at the health authority listings and looking on, all the different job posting websites and looking at advertisements for private practices and what have you, I just thought, wow, I don't have the related counseling experience that these places are looking for. Although I'd had over a decade of people experience in different capacities, I was with that business that I was to operate for 7 years. And before that, the previous, I guess, 7 years, I was working in different organizations related to private healthcare. So there was a lot of overlap in terms of like working with people and people skills and empathy and all of these different pieces. And so I came across this job posting and it sounded like such a great group of individuals in a private counseling practice already. And everything about it called to me. And so I, followed the trail of links to here and there and find the original posting. And then when I finally found the posting, it was a couple of months old. Oh, no. And I was super deflated. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to throw my resume in anyways, because I'm kind of starting from nothing. So I may as well just take a bunch of shots. And I decided also to connect with Meredith from Parallel Wellness. And when she and I chatted, she said, the position has been filled and she was just training somebody at the time I contacted her, but she would keep me in mind because we had a great chat and also a connection through Adler University too. Not that we knew one another, but that we were both Adler grads. So my head was hung a little low, but I was hopeful that maybe something would come up in the future. And a few weeks later, it turned out that the new hire didn't work out. So she gave me a call and then I had an interview and then I got the position.
Wow, that worked in your favor. That choice to just put your resume in the hat and not, sort of be discouraged and be turned away, allowed you to, access that opportunity. If you hadn't taken that step, then it, probably wouldn't have been a reality.
Exactly. Yeah, it was bold and courageous and not like something I would usually do. So I thought, it's new chapter. I'm setting myself up. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but private practice is a good option. At the same time, while that was happening, I had decided when I was completing my master's degree that my ideal situation would be to work in a multidisciplinary facility with a whole bunch of other practitioners to really provide the most holistic care. At the same time that I was, formulating that and wrapping things up with my grad program, my chiropractor was moving from where he was located his own practice into this group setting. And he said to me, have you ever considered that you might want to work here? And there was no other counselors there. Like there was no mental health practitioners there at the time. And my partner was kind of jabbing at me too, saying like, hey, why don't you find out about Catalyst? And so I said, you know what? Sure. I'll have a meeting. So I had a meeting with the owner of the business and, he really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect as far as offering mental health services in a facility that did a lot of like sports and rehab. So we both decided to take a chance, and my private practice inside Catalyst Kinetics Group. So it was really surreal because I was doing the thing I wanted most to do. And it just seemed really strange that it all kind of happened, not easily, but just so serendipitously.
There's this sense of, is this really happening? What I've always wanted is really happening, in that sense of surrealness. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think something that I came up against while I was just establishing myself in private practice was really that imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Is this the right thing for me? Like, am I getting too big for my britches or something? Like, am I really ready for this?
Yes.
I was able to borrow a lot of confidence, I'll say, from the skills that I had learned over all of the years running the business that I was working at when I was
Yeah.
doing my program, because it was all like all of the guts of the business, the marketing, the sales, the networking, the SEO, the website, like absolutely everything. I had my hands on absolutely everything, the accounting, the bookkeeping, all of that stuff. So I had all of these skills that I could bring into private practice. And I thought, well, that's the most transferable thing that I can bring right now that's going to help me. So I had
Definitely.
all of that established on the back end. And I think that's where there's a big learning curve for students who are new graduates, is if you're going to go into private practice, which might seem to be the best option because you don't graduate with 3 to 5 years experience, like all of those positions need, then to know the business of private practice, or at least to know a business, how to run a business, is super, super valuable.
Yeah.
So I
So it's
think
that
that gave
transferable
me
skills that you talked about.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And you thought that that wouldn't be something that was going to be helpful for you. But then recognizing that, wow, it's super valuable, because I wish I had that experience, when I started my private practice, because I felt the same way that you felt, that imposter syndrome. I'm doing this right. Nobody's coming. How do I get people to come? Marketing, all that stuff. It's sort of like you're wearing multiple hats, and it's all confusing, right? So it's great that you sort of had those skills that you were already using in this other, I guess, opportunity. And then you could transfer those skills into sort of private practice, and it worked for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have imagined how much I was bringing from that job into my counseling private practice. So I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity, because it's responsible for all of the, everything of my business except for the counseling part.
Yes, yes. No, definitely. It makes sense. It makes sense for sure. Like, we don't recognize, just how much a private, a counselor does in private practice. And, it's definitely a skill that is not for the faint of heart at all. And it's great to hear that, you were able to, it sounds like, traverse, your journey was, as you say, not exactly the way that others would indicate. So there's this idea of a cookie cutter story where, I've always wanted to be a counselor. I went to undergrad and I did psychology, and then I went and did my master's, and I did all these different, volunteer experiences that taught me how to be a counselor and all of those different things, right? But your story wasn't like that. It was a bit different, where, you had experience in sort of the business world. You ran a company basically on your own, and you had all these transferable skills that then you realized was going to be useful to you later down the road. And it sounds like you're very thankful for that and grateful for that, and realize that, those are the things that, not that they're more important than counseling skills, but they're able to help you now. During this pandemic, as you said, we all had to go online and figure out how we're gonna, do this online. And I'm sure those skills were helpful for you then too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being able to, I suppose, deal with the customer management of it. Not that I would ever call a client customers, and I certainly don't see them that way, but there's a
Yes.
transactional piece that you have to respect in the interaction in private practice. And so all of those skills were really helpful as well. And so maybe I'll go back to a year before the pandemic. I was working with a company where a lot of clients who I was working with were across Canada. So in BC, in remote parts of BC, and then Alberta, some Ontario. And so I actually had been doing a lot of online counseling for the better part of a year, and had stopped just a few months before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So the transition from in person to online was also really seamless. I mean, going from seeing everyone in person to seeing everyone online was completely unexpected. But
Yes.
I already understood how the dynamic could work, and how to place a room and all of those things to be mindful of in terms of setting up a therapeutic space in your own home, all the boundary setting with yourself to turn off the work, especially as a private practice owner. Yes.
That the boundary setting, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I do a good job of it most days. But yeah, figuring out all of that was, it was really helpful of you, kind of setting up for that. So when the pandemic hit and I realized, as time is going on, geez, it's been 6 months and I still have this space and this facility with all of the other practitioners there. It was a really tough decision, but I ultimately decided I'm going to pull my office, because I'm staying online for the time being. I'm not sure when things are going back to normal or whatever that's going to look like. So this is my office. These are the places where I used to sit and my clients would sit. Well, I'm still sitting here, but it's just in a very different place now. So that, I suppose, in a way, I think I'll be reconciling that after the pandemic, moving out of the space that was exactly where I wanted it to be, and deciding what the next step forward is going to look like after.
Yeah, definitely. And these transitions can be tough, right? Sort of this idea of figuring out, okay, what do I do now, right? And it's sort of like this idea of needing to change with the times. And it sounds for me like your transitions are more like you're open to the possibility of what's next. And, it sounds like that served you, and taking brave steps, right? And putting yourself out there, and that idea of transferable skills as well. So those are the three things that I'm hearing sort of coming out of your story there, being willing to take courageous steps, to put yourself out there, transferable skills that are going to help you make those transitions. And then sort of this idea of, opening yourself up to new possibilities.
Yeah. And I recognize too that that's not something everyone is going to have, or even in terms of, the openness to possibilities. I wouldn't have even said that I'm a person who says, okay, let's embrace everything and be really bold and super courageous. I would have doubted in 2012 if I had the guts, but I just decided this was the thing that I needed to do. And so that's how I approached each step, from deciding to private practice to where I'm going to lay down my roots, and then saying, okay, well, now we're moving into a planter and I'm at home. I'm a houseplant now.
Yes, definitely. I'm thinking about, I guess my own story and that, transition that you're talking about. And I totally identify with what, you're sharing there, this idea of going from a corporate sort of job, and going into private practice or working with an agency, and then sort of this idea of, okay, leaving this, really cushy sort of, agency position, and then sort of venturing out on your own. And it comes with, as you say, imposter syndrome and fear and all of that. But sort of that willingness to take a step and seize opportunities, it sounds like was able to help you to gain success and help you to get to that next level. Even though it was hard to do and challenging, you weren't sure, oh, am I going to be able to do this? You were able to use the skills that you had, and that openness that you have, to make that step, which helped you to be where you are now. For sure. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So, if you were to share any tips with the audience, so it sounds like it's a career transition that you're sharing. So it could be, new counselors out there. It could be anybody maybe sort of moving from, one aspect of their job and trying to do something new. What are some, I guess, tips you could share that may be helpful for them?
Yeah. My first tip is, a few times, take risks. Even coming from me, take risks. Apply for expired job postings. Connect with people who you want to work with. Don't be afraid to be rejected, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge risk, but especially when you're in a position where you're just getting yourself situated, there's nothing to lose.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing that was really helpful for me was to network with other professionals. So through my work with parallel wellness in my private practice, I've met with a lot of practitioners to get a sense of what is their philosophy, what is the type of work that they do, how can it complement counseling, and how might we be able to create a referral stream for one another. And that's been super
Mhm.
successful in terms of building a private practice, and also being able to understand, I think for me more deeply, what are my values and what is my approach to mental health and well-being. And then I can support my clients through that,
Yeah.
because more resources that we can refer to and that we can talk about in session too. Um, Another piece is to set boundaries, especially, in starting a private practice, just knowing where your limits are, making sure that you're not burning yourself out, because then you're no good to anybody, not even your clients, certainly not yourself.
True.
That's been a big learning piece, having a wide open calendar and the availability to meet anyone anytime is well and good and helps you. And then you don't want to be handcuffed to that. So have some boundaries set so that there is time for you and your life and your schedule. Um, Another thing that I've been refining and refining, and I think this comes after the imposter syndrome, there's like a maturation that happens, is to go with what you know in terms of private practice. If it's not establishing a niche, then understand where you really enjoy working. What are
Mhm.
those concerns or those, presenting issues where you've got a treatment plan down pat, or that things flow really well? And then make sure that you have other colleagues or therapists who you network with that you can refer to. And again, that will be another referral stream. And then you're not ever getting out of your own depths. And I think supervision is a natural add-on for checking yourself too, checking your blind spots by having that regular supervision.
Yeah, no, those are great tips for sure. I caught four. So, if I remember correctly, you mentioned take risks. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
take risks. Take those courageous steps and seize opportunities. Networking, for sure. Networking is a huge one. Just, being able to talk to others that are in the business, figuring out how you can, access more clients and, creating a referral stream is amazing, right? So those are great. And then the next one I think I heard was sort of the idea of, correct me if I'm wrong with the last one. Yeah, I don't remember the last
Setting
two.
boundaries, setting
Yes,
boundaries.
yes, the boundaries. Oh, the boundaries are so important for sure. So setting boundaries and making sure that you do have work-life balance, especially now that we're in a pandemic. Wanting to make sure that you have that separate time. And while you were saying that, I was thinking about my own schedule. But yes, definitely setting boundaries, making sure you have that self-care down. And you said the last one was supervision. Yes, supervision is super important, especially as counselors. You want to make sure that you have somebody that you can talk to, about what's going on, right? And making sure that you're centered and prepared for your clients. Mhm. Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing with us. and coming and talking about your experience of being a counselor and how you became a counselor and what that journey has been like for you, and sort of sharing these tips. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, it's been a great chat.
Okay. All right. So before we leave, just wanting everybody to know how they can contact you. They wanted some couples counseling, or, they wanted some individual counseling. How would they connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. So the best way to reach me is by email. So my email is connect@ashleygreensmith.com, and it's Smith with a Y. Another great way to get in touch with me is on Instagram. I'm really active there, sharing a lot of mental health content and advertising for upcoming couples workshops, and that's at Ashley Greensmith.
Okay, great. We will be putting Ashley's contact information in the description below, so please look out for that. We're so happy to have you, Ashley, and hopefully we'll be able to have you again if you're willing.
Yes, in person.
Definitely. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. Until next time, take care.